Bunny. My name is Sevander Milov, and I'm part of XW research group in University of Leipzig. And today I'm going to talk about CKAN, which is open source data management solution for open data, but it also can be used for enterprise data. But today we're going to talk about it in the context of data. So I want to give a brief introduction to the research group, which I'm part of. We're relatively we got 40 plus PhD students. Therefore, we got subdivisions in different subgroups, like you can see on this group roster. We got machine learning, ontology learning, emergent semantics, semantics abstraction, LP to RDF, and adaptive information and knowledge engineering subgroups. And basically, I'm mostly working with Dr. Jens Lehmann, Dr. Michael Martin, and Dr. Axel Gonga. And Open Data Solutions is a part of emergent semantics group. We got a lot of projects going on. If you're interested in what our group is doing, please visit our web portal, and you can see the projects which are there. So about my experience with CKAN, I was a part of LOD2 project, and basically there were two parts of the LOD2 project which was related to CKAN. First one is a public data view portal. This was an initiative for open data in Europe. Basically, this portal was dedicated to aggregate all the open data which is in Europe and make a one-stop point for all the data. So my part there was to aggregate all the CSV files from this data portal and create mappings for them and expose it as an RDF data according to linked data principles, and so the users can consume machine readable representations of CSV files. The second project, which was related to the CKAN, was LotStats. Basically, it was related in sense that I crawled Data Hub IO portal, and I get all the RDF data sets, and then for them, LotStats calculating statistics and exposing it as RDF data again. And in version 2, I extended LotStats to aggregate also data.gov and public data view portal. And the last contribution I just published, I submitted a paper to ISWC, and also I put the RDF dams of data.gov and public data view there. So if you're interested, I think you already probably got it because I announced it on Semantic Web and public LOD mailing list just several days ago. So this is about my experience, and the main misconception about CKAN is that it can store your data. It cannot. So what it can store is a metadata, and initially dedicated to store metadata, not the data itself. And this is the common misconception about CKAN, and please remember this. However, it can be extended to store the files, but it's not the initial thought behind the CKAN itself. So why CKAN? First of all, it's an open source data platform, and it's relatively easy to deploy, and it provides therefore a rich set of features for free. On the other hand, as any open source solution, it's lacking documentation in some places, but this can be attributed to the because it's developing super fast, and it's adopted by a lot of portals, and documentation getting better. Right now, it's quite good, and it's easy to deploy. So the second point is you can use CKAN as a data management, and there are not many alternatives out there. Like, for instance, data.gov portal, it was using Socrata platform previously, but then they migrated to CKAN also because Socrata is not really open source. They had to pay for it. And the third thing is there's a community involvement. Because it's an open source platform, you get access to all the tools developed by other parties, like by DataGov portal maintainers, and there are a lot of plugins. There are mailing lists you can get for free, basically, and get involved in the process developing the CKAN if you want, or just using it. So who use CKAN? I just want to emphasize two major communities here. The first one is open governments, obviously. The largest data portal I know is Canadian one. They got almost 2,500,000 data sets, and then there is US and European aggregated public data U portal. Also, there is other communities like a semantic web community with the portal on datahub.io. It's a bit smaller than open government dataset, but they provide, on the other hand, better quality data. Right. So about CKAN architecture, as any web application can be divided in two parts. Basically, there is a backend and front end, and front end is quite simple. There are users which can be parts of organizations. They can create packages, and those packages can contain resources. To give you an example, we at XW Group, we have an organization created at DataHub.io portal where we publish our datasets to support their dissemination. For instance, we got DBpedia dataset, which is RDF representation for the Wikipedia SQL dumps, and we publish it as a package, and different versions of DBpedia dataset can be represented as resources. Obviously, for DBpedia, we don't have XML or CSV representation. We only got RDF, but you can see the structure that DBpedia dataset is one package and different resources are different versions. There is one problem with the DBpedia itself. I'm going to highlight it later, but the idea is quite simple. At the back end, what is running there is a SQL, a relational database management system, which is PostgreSQL. There is Apache Solr index for supporting searching. And there is a CKAN code base written in Python, which can be extended by different plugins, like I listed here, Datastore and Decat RDF, and some other plugins can be supported as well. The Decat RDF plugin is really important one. It's not a part of the standard distribution, but if you just install CKAN as it is without this extension, your data doesn't comply to any standard representation. If you enable this plugin, it complies to the special vocabulary for exposing your dataset metadata. And therefore, like this vocabulary is called DCAT. This is data catalog vocabulary. It's W3C recommendation. And if your metadata is described to vocabulary, it lowers the barrier for the data consumption, like big time. And yeah, so this is architecture, and the pros and cons of what this CKAN is as follows. It can organize your data in a structured way, and it has this DCAT extension, which you just can use. And if you use it, it gives access to the data in the standardized way to all the consumers. And it provides also API to digest your data. And the cons are the data model doesn't work for all use cases. Like in case of DBpedia, actually, the one way to structure it is to have a package for one data set, and then you got for different versions of the data set, you got different resources. But in case of DBpedia, there is also further structuring where for each of the versions, you may have several data dumps. And in case, if you got this kind of structuring of the data set, you need some further description mechanisms, and we developed in NLP-to-RDF subgroup in our Akazawa group. We developed data ID descriptions for such a big RDF data set. So there are some problems, but they can be tackled in this or other way. And the second con is there are no strict guidelines for dataset publishing. Therefore, everyone, if it's not described as a part of the process into the public body or in the organization, like in DataHub.io, there are a lot of different scientific groups, and they publish dataset as they want. And this kind of the consumption is challenging for this data set if you want to do it in an automatized way. So these no strict guidelines can be a problem in some cases. So the functionality of CKAN is you can publish the metadata, you can expose it through API or front end, and there is access control for users and organizations. Access control in the sense that you most likely want everybody to be able to see your data sets, like to be able to fetch the data about them, like which format they are structured in and who published them, etc. But you don't want everyone to get the edit access, so CKAN give this out of the box. And there is also additional functionality via the plugins. So which plugins are available there? The most used, and also when I was part of a CKAN conference in Berlin last year, it was one of the highlights, like they got Datastore plugin, which basically enables data preview and visualization for CSV files, for instance. And what it does, it follows the download link for the dataset, it downloads the file, and then enable a view on top of it. And you can have, for instance, a bar chart or a pie chart on top of the like tabular representation of the data set itself. The second most important extension is this CKAN plus DCAT extension, which enables a standardized representation of your metadata. And then there are a lot of them, like some which enables discussion about the data set, like this discuss commenting system, and some simple ones like simple API dataset hits counter, which basically it store a counter for calls to the show API comment for a given dataset. It means that when somebody coming to view the dataset, it just increase the number of views, and then you can access it. For the full list of extensions, you can visit the link on this slide. Yep, presentation. I've got it on a Google Drive actually. I will talk. It. So please don't worry about the Python environment and setup of Apache Solr, and quite complex. The second option is to install it from the OS package, like from Debian package, for instance. And this will work for you if you only want to run one CKAN per server or one CKAN per virtual machine. Yeah, the drawbacks for the packages is that they're not very well maintained or in other words, you will have to wait for a long time for it to be updated. The third option, which is the best, I think, if you don't want to develop the CKAN, is just to use Docker image. Docker image can be compiled by yourself, and the last version is basically what you can do is you can deploy a CKAN instance for. Oops. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but you are breaking
Seems.
off.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
you can pick it up.
Sorry. Shall I return to some point where I start to disappear?
I think if you go back 4 slides, that would be nice.
1, 2, 3. This one?
Yep.
Oh, right. Sorry for that. So yes, then the last thing you heard, I was talking about the CKAN architecture, and the pros and cons of this architecture is that the pros is organize data in structured way, and you can have this extension to support DCAT, which gives you a standardized access to the metadata for end users, and also it provides API to digest your data. The cons are that the data model doesn't support all the cases. Like for instance, we got a problem with dbpedia. dbpedia got quite complex structure. For one version, it got around 173 data dumps. So we developed a special vocabulary to describe this dataset structure, and basically in the end we just published one file with the machine readable description of the dataset. And the second con is there are no strict guidelines for dataset publishing, and that means that everyone can publish their dataset as they want to, and this restricts, like there is quite challenges for automatic consumption because there are no strict guidelines. Right. So the second functionality is pretty simple. Basically, you can publish metadata, you can expose it, or again.
Go
Sorry, can you hear me?
on now. We can. Yes, go on. We can hear you.
All right. So yeah, CKAN functionality is pretty straightforward. You can publish a metadata and you can expose it using either front end or API. And you can enable access control on top of it. By access control, I mean that you restrict editing for the metadata to particular users or organizations. For instance, in public data, you don't want that everyone edits data set related to transparency of spending money or something, that everybody are able to edit this. And also there is additional functionality which can be achieved by installing plugins. So there are quite a lot of plugins, and a full list is available at the link below the slides. The first important one is, and it was also highlighted on the CKAN conference I was visiting last year in Berlin, It's a data preview and visualization. It's called Datastore, and basically what it can do for you when you install it, it can grab CSV files from the remote hosts, download it on the server, and then enable views on top of it in bar charts, in pie charts, and in maps representations. So you can have some previews and some visualizations on top of your data. The second important plugin is a CKAN plus DCAT. DCAT is a W3C recommendation, and you should enable this. The only problem with this, it only enables RDF representation for the dataset themselves, but it doesn't enable RDF representation for all the other information on the web portal, like users, organizations, etc. But it really lowers the barrier to consume the data. And I think this is one of the selling points of the CKAN, like having this standardized vocabulary for describing metadata of the data sets. Also, there is quite some plugins to enable the social interactions on the portal, like this discuss commenting, and a lot of simple hacks like simple API dataset hits counter, we just count the visits of the dataset. So for the CKAN deployment, you've got three options. The first one is the most complex one, and you don't want to use it if you don't develop the CKAN or if you don't write extension for it. So to install it from source, basically you have to install the CKAN base in the virtual Python environment and then set up Apache Solr. And yeah, like you only would do that if you develop CKAN. The second option is installation from the operation system package, for instance, from Debian package. And this can be a good option if you just want to install one CKAN per server. And the third option is just using the Docker image. Oh yeah, about the operation system package, the problem there is they are not very well maintained usually, and for Debian package to be updated, you have to wait for some quiet time, and yeah, this is can be a problem. So I would say the best option for this production deployment is to use a Docker image, and Docker image is compiled directly from the GitHub repository to include the last stable versions of the CKAN software itself. So it's the best option for the production. I want to highlight the CKAN MultiTier deployment. Basically, this is the model which Public Data uses. You can start deploying CKAN for your different public bodies if they don't want to conform to one data model or they got some disagreements for some reason. And yeah, also you may have issues with language, or maybe you just want to aggregate it afterwards and you didn't think about it before. So you can deploy CKAN instances for each of the local public bodies of your local offices, or just having a local installation, and then you can aggregate it using the CKAN harvest extension. And actually, CKAN was not planned to be aggregatable in the first place, as far as I know. It was only, it is available right now only due to this special extension. So I want to highlight the API because this is by far the most important thing to consume the data. Through the front end, it's good for the normal users, but if you want to build application on top of the data, and usually you want to do this to give useful insights into this, you have to use API. It's very well documented. It covers everything you can do with the web interface. It covers like literally everything. You can write your own web interface using it. And there are a lot of various API clients. The official one is a Python client, because CKAN itself is written in Python, so it was straightforward to write a Python client. But if you prefer different programming languages, there's also Ruby, PHP, Java, Node.js, Pro, and R. You can see the full list following the links on the slide. So the methods which are supported by the API is basically retrieving the data, creating new data, updating data, deleting data, and the data can be packages, resources, group, tags, users, organization, basically everything. You can even follow other user using API, because when you're accessing API, you use your public API key. For example, to get the package list, just you can get it, of course, through one of the API clients, which I listed before. But just to give you a simple example, I will use the links here. So by following the first link, you will get a list of all IDs of the packages inside this CKAN instance. Yeah, I've got a problem for data.gov. I think this procedure takes a lot of time, so they disabled it. So it's not enabled for all the portals, but usually you can do this. And then for each package, just taking one ID and using the second link and modifying the ID get parameter, like it's right now it's a dual district spending, you can get data about this particular package. So if you're reading API docs and you see something like ckan.logic.action.get.organization_show, basically you have to substitute this link, the last string, which is the organization show, with something which coming after the last dot, and then the get parameters like ID and everything else is written in the documentation, and it's quite straightforward. You can see there are a lot of functions, and you can literally get everything out of it. So yeah, as the last thing, I want to highlight two applications which I developed myself in IKSW group. The first one is LoadStats. It's for collecting the statistical information about RDF datasets. Basically, what I did, I aggregated CKAN instances using API. I've got the 3 CKAN instances right now into which is aggregated by a aggregator. It's the data hub.io, public data, and data.gov. The only problem I've got aggregated is that data.gov disabled the least functionality, so I had to crawl the pages and to collect IDs, but after that, the simple API calls works. So I aggregated all the data, and I filtered out only the interested data sets for me, which are RDF dataset, and then I built application on top of it. The CKAN aggregation itself took me not a lot of time to write this plugin. I think I needed like half of a week, something, just using API, and yeah, debugging took some time, but the process is quite straightforward. And the second application I want to highlight is C Suite RDF for CKAN, for public data view. Basically, this application is integrated with a particular CKAN instance. Like for public data view, there was a special extension written which provided links to my server where C Suite of mappings and RDF files for particular CSVs were hosted. And it aggregates all the CSV file from the instance, it downloads it, sits on our servers, and then it provides an interface for CSV to RDF conversion. Basically, we utilized CKAN here in a sense that we crawled all the data set, we figure out which data set is CSV file, we followed the download links and download all the CSV files, and then just work with them. And that was the last slide. Yes, so thank you for your attention. I think I'm a bit over time. Now it's time for questions.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It was a very nice presentation. We got to understand the software, its structure, its deployment, and the various customizations that you have done. I'm sure your users are very keen. We had a hitch up on sound, but thank you so much for picking that up. For now, everyone else have a chance for sending in their questions. What you can do is to